Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Rushi Joshi from IITE Gandhinagar, Gujarat. First of all, I would like to congratulate Team Vedant for organizing this international conference on reimagining higher education in 21st century in an inclusive way towards Viksit Bharat via NEP 2020 and IKS. I'd like to thank Dr. Arjun Dave for providing me this wonderful opportunity to chair a technical session. And I would like to give a submission that papers for this conference are really good and really knowledge worthy. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ajay Kumar, and I'm research scholar at City University in Ludhiana, Punjab. Today, I'm going to present my research paper for the 5th International Virtual Multidisciplinary Conference, which is going to be held on 27th and 28th of February 2026. The title of my research paper is Gender and Cultural Identity in Post-Colonial Indian Literature, a study of Roy and Gigu. So without wasting my any time, I would like to take you to the presentation. As you can see, the title of my paper, Gender and Cultural Identity in Post-Colonial Indian Literature, a study of Roy and Gigu. Let's move to the main slide. Post-colonial identity, gender spaces and vulnerabilities. Colonial rule profoundly reshapes culture, subjectivity and space with deeply gendered implications. Indian English novels often depict women and queer character in bhabas, in between spaces of partial belonging. Gender, caste and religion intersect, creating unique vulnerabilities and agencies. Roy critiques dismantling norms. In her first novel, The God of Small Things, identity crisis from colonial histories, local patriarchies, and love laws. In her second novel, The Ministry of Utmost Happiness, she centers transgenders, Dalit, Adivasi, Muslim figures to unsettle national and heteronormative imaginaries. Intersectional feminism and queer perspectives. Kimberly Crenshaw's intersectionality, gender inseparable from caste, class, religion, and region. Roy's interlocking of caste and patriarchy, like Amu and Rahil in the characters of her first novel, nexus of sexuality, gender, and militarized state power. Queer trans scholarship, Hijra community ritual recognition versus social marginalization. Roy's Anjum intersex and Hijra identity challenging binary gender, creating fluid selfhood. Exile, memory, and cultural identity. In this framework, we see diaspora and exile, forced relocation fractures cultural identity and collective memory. Kashmiri Pandit, exile as physical displacement and incurable schism. Women as cultural guardians, yet often marginalized in public and literary narratives. Juxtaposing Roy and Gigu, comparing Kashmiri Pandit diaspora and Pan-India Subaltern coalitions. Primary text and analysis methods. For the primary text, we have The God of Small Things, where we see the caste, gender intersection, familially cultural identity in Kerala, the Ministry of Utmost Happiness, transgender identity, militarized Kashmir, alternative communities. Then we have another novel of the author Siddharth Gigu, The Garden of Solitude. In this novel, Kashmiri Pandit exile, collective memory, and gardener displacement is depicted. Now let's come to the methods of analysis. Post-colonial and feminist close reading, gender violence, sexuality resistance in Roy, discourse analysis, gendered, cultural, and tradition in Gigu, e.g. For example, we have community honor, women's bodies. Comparative thematics like home, exile, graveyards, rivers, camps, rituals across authors. Now we have gender subalternity and cultural identity. First we have women, caste and love laws. Caste and patriarchy regulate female sexuality and cultural belonging. Post-colonial cultural identity relies on love laws, policy intimacy. Transgender and subaltern communities, Anjum and other queer, Dalit, Muslim, Adivasi figures in the Ministry of Utmost Happiness, challenges binary gender, imagine alternative kinship. Exile memory and gardener community. Kashmiri Pandit exile. As we see in the first novel of the Siddharth Gigo, The Garden of Solitude, Sridhar's journey, communal trauma, launching of return, cultural memory framed by masculine discourse, exile, alter, gardener performance, women's erasure and vulnerability, threats against women, slogans, rape, murder, but limited voice. Women's body central to communal honor, fear of violence derives first. Conclusion. Gender identity and community, different regimes, shared precarity. Siddharth Gigu largely reproduces heteronormative structures. Royce recenters women, queer, and transgender kinship. Cultural identity as a site of intense vulnerability of gendered bodies. Alternative communities and politics of home. Gigu's home is lost Kashmir, identity sustained through ritual and narration. Roy's home is fractured, new belonging in graveyard colonies and protest sites. Thank you so much.
The next paper is on gender and cultural identity in post-colonial Indian literature, a study of Roy and Gigo, presented by Ajay Kumar. The paper offers a compelling comparative analysis of gendered identity formation in post-colonial Indian through the work of Arundhati Roy and Siddharth Gigu. Through close reading of The God of Small Things, The Ministry of Utmost Happiness, and The Garden of Solitude, the study effectively foregrounds intersection of caste, gender, exile, and memory. The integration of post-colonial and intersectional feminist frameworks drawing on thinkers like Homike Bhabha and Kanshaw strengthens its theoretical grounding. The contrast between Roy's subversive, queer-inclusive vision of nationhood and Gigo's exile-centered, patriarchal memory narrative is analytical insightful. The study successfully demonstrates that the gender is constitutive, not peripheral, to cultural identity in post-colonial Indian literature. Overall, it is a nuanced and theoretically rich contribution to contemporary literary and cultural studies. Thank you.
Namaste, I am Rajani Kanth, ex-Armed Forces and a yoga practitioner, currently working as an assistant professor in Department of Computers at Sri Gnanambika Degree College, Autonomous, Madanpalli. Welcome to all to the 5th International Virtual Multidisciplinary Conference, Reimagining Higher Education in 21st Century through NEP 2020 and IKS, hosted by Vedant Knowledge Systems Private Limited. I am presenting my paper, Nature's Trinity Expressions and the Trinity of Human as expressed in Bhagavad Gita. The Trinity, nowadays, many of the people across the world come up with this particular statement, Trinity. They say body, mind, soul. We should align these three into one to live a peaceful life. Of course, which leads to wrong conclusions and wrong identifications. Bharatiya Vedanta should not say Bharatiya Vedanta. It is what the Vedanta expression of entire globe that has been preserved by Bharatiya. So we have the same trinity, we call it physical self, conceptual self, and actual self. What is the problem with the other philosophies is, we can say my body, my mind, my soul. People have come across this particular terminology like may his soul rest in peace. Say his soul, I have a pure soul, you get a pure soul. Say who is this I? Who has body, who has a mind, and who also has a soul is the biggest question that has been not answered in other philosophies. Bharatiya Rishi Darshan, it gave a proper terminology for this particular identification, that we have a physical self, say it is not body, it is a physical self, say Dehatma Bhavana, conceptual self, Jivatma Bhavana, actual self is what Paramatma Bhavana, and I am the one who is experiencer of all these three. See, I have a body, I am expressed through body, I am the Jiva, I am the actual self. See, of course, even actual self can be identified either during sleep time, or you say when you meditate and get into a state of samadhi. How this helps in reimaging higher education is through Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, it tells what not to do, because entire first chapter, when Arjuna Vishada Yoga, Arjuna has come up with his ideology. Krishna said three terms in the first sloka, what Sri Krishna has spoken. He said, Kasmalam, how come you get this unnecessary things in your mind? Whatever you have spoken is anarya justam asvargyam akirtikaram. Now, these three terms are the basic of the entire Bhagavad Gita. This is a root. So, Anarya Justam, and how whatever Arjuna has spoken is Anarya Justam, has been expressed by Krishna in number of slokas that has been recorded by Veda Vyasa in 6 chapters and called it Karma Shatkam. This entire Karma Shatkam, it expresses what to do. And what to do, the do is what functionality of the physical body, and the second one is Asvargyam, the one that goes to Swarga or Naraka is what a Jiva, is what a conceptual self. Say the way you have spoken is not conceptually correct. This is what Krishna said to Arjuna, and that has been recorded into 6 another chapters, and Veda Vyasa called it Bhakti Shatkam, and irrespective of whether the conceptual self is correct or physical self is correct, unless actual self is within, these two cannot be existing. So whenever one gets a kirti, the kirti belongs to the actual self, and how actual self expresses itself in the nature has been given in Jnana Shatkam by the Veda Vyasa through the Bhagavad Gita. Say entire Bhagavad Gita in 3 terms is you should not be Anarya Justam Asvargyam Akirtikaram. And on this globe, all the people are classified into 2 paths. One is in Nivruti Marga, second one is Pravriti Marga. The people in Pravriti Marga should identify this Trinity. This Trinity is not for people who are in Nivruti Marga. And this paper provides an advantage for identifying the Trinity correctly, and it proves it. And if it is integrated into live implementation by the people, the practices nurture the nature and self within this. So, thanks to Vedant Knowledge Systems for being bridge with its conferences to present papers on IKS and all multidisciplinary aspects. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone. The title of very first paper presented over here is Nature's Trinity Expression and the Trinity of the Human as expressed in Bhagavad Gita. The main author of the paper is M.S. Rajani Kanth and co-authors were P. Gurumurthy and Punugu Srikanth. The paper presents a profound interpretation of the Trinity framework in the Bhagavad Gita, redefining it as the Deh, Jeev, Atma rather than the commonly misunderstood body mind soul model. It critically examines linguistic and conceptual habits that create identity confusion using Krishna's opening instruction to Arjuna as the diagnostic foundation. The author over here systematically connected karma, bhakti, jhana through the three satkams of Gita, showing them an integrated expressions of human maturity rather than separate parts. The analysis of a Prakriti through the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, provided a practical, psychological, and ethical framework of contemporary life by grounding the discussion in Indian knowledge system and Sanatana Dharma. The paper offers a nature aligned experiential methodology for resolving modern self-identity crisis. Overall, the work successfully bridges scripture depth with lived human experience, presenting a Trinity as a functional model for clarity, harmony, and self-realization. Thank you.
Good afternoon, respected dignitaries and all the participants. I am Kiran Ghai, Assistant Professor from Equality Institute of Management and Technology. Today I will be presenting my paper on the role of educators in holistic personality development and value transmission with special reference to the National Education Policy 2020, Indian Knowledge Systems and the vision of Viksit Bharat. In the 21st century, higher education has undergone rapid transformation due to globalization, technological advancement, and increasing employability pressures. While these changes have enhanced access and skill development, they have also resulted in an excessive focus on cognitive and technical competencies. As a consequence, the emotional, ethical, and value based dimensions of education have gradually received less attention. This imbalance has led to critical concern. Graduates who are professionally skilled but insufficiently prepared to handle ethical dilemmas, social responsibilities, and emotional challenges. It is within this context that holistic personality developments become highly relevant. The National Education Policy 2020 strongly address this concern. NEP 2020 envision education as a learner-centric, multidisciplinary, and value-oriented process. It emphasizes the development of not only intellectual abilities but also ethical reasoning, emotional intelligence, social responsibility, and constitutional values. Importantly, the policy identifies educators as central agents in translating this vision into classroom practice. The concept of Viksit Bharat at the rate 2047 further reinforces this idea. A developed nation is not defined solely by economic growth or technological development, but by the quality of its human capital. Education, therefore, plays a foundational role in shaping responsible, ethical, socially conscious citizens who can contribute meaningfully to the national development. Holistic personality development involves the balanced growth of cognitive, emotional, ethical, social, and spiritual dimensions. In the context, the role of educators become very important. Educators are not merely transmitters of information, they function as mentors, facilitators, role models, and value transmitters. Through their teaching methods, interpersonal behavior, and classroom culture, educators significantly influence students' attitudes, values, and life perspectives. The study also highlights the relevance of Indian knowledge systems, traditional practice such as yoga, mindfulness, and Gurukul model offer time-tested frameworks for the value-based and holistic education. Integrating these elements into contemporary higher education can strengthen cultural rootedness and character formation while remaining aligned with global standards. Based on secondary data analysis of policy documents, UGC reports, and scholarly literature, the finding reveals that while policy support for holistic education is strong, implementation varies across institutions. Institutions that emphasize mentorship, reflective practices, and value based pedagogy demonstrate more positive outcomes in holistic student development. Accordingly, the study suggests the need for holistic faculty development programs that integrate pedagogy, emotional intelligence, and Indian knowledge systems. Additionally, structured mentorship systems should be institutionalized to strengthen teacher-study relationship. In conclusion, achieving the objectives of NEP 2020 and Viksit Bharat requires a strong alignment between policy practice, empowering educators, and re-envisioning their role as nation builder is essential for creating a truly holistic higher education system. Thank you so much.
So, our next paper is on role of educators in holistic personality development and value transmission. Reimagining higher education in the 21st century towards Viksit Bharat via NEP 2020 and Indian Knowledge System. It was presented by Kiran Ghai. The paper offers a comprehensive educator-centric interpretation of the National Education Policy 2020, positioning teachers as the pivotal force in achieving holistic and value-based higher education. It thoughtfully integrates Indian knowledge system with contemporary pedagogy, emphasizing emotional, ethical, and spiritual dimensions of learner development. The structured analysis, supported by policy document and global perspective like UNESCO and OECD, it strengthens its academic depth and policy levels. The identification of faculty development gaps and mentorship depicts adds practical significance of discussion. The proposed educator-focused framework presents actionable suggestions aligned with the vision of Viksit Bharat 2047. Overall, the paper effectively bridges policy vision, classroom practice, reinforcing the transformative role of educators in nation building. Thank you.
Good morning, esteemed colleagues and distinguished guests present here. Thank you for the opportunity to present at this international conference on reimagining education for sustainable development. My name is Jyoti Mishra, a PhD scholar from Maharaja Ganga Singh University, Bikaner, Rajasthan. Today I am sharing my insights from my paper titled Reimagining English Literature in 21st Century Higher Education, an Inclusive Literary Path to Viksit Bharat 2047. This work closely aligns with our conference theme by exploring how inclusive higher education reforms can drive India's vision of a developed country by 2047, drawing on literary perspectives to foster equity and innovation. Let me begin with the core thesis. Viksit Bharat 2047 aims for holistic progress, economic, social, cultural, where higher education plays a pivotal role. My paper argues that we must transform it into an inclusive ecosystem that empowers marginalized groups, integrates indigenous knowledge, and promotes critical thinking. Grounded in feminist and post-colonial theories, it extends my doctoral theories on revisiting Sita in select text, using literature to reclaim voices and build resilience. The NEP 2020 serves as the foundational framework emphasizing multidisciplinary learning and equity to bridge gaps in access and employability. First, the paper identifies key challenges in 21st century higher education. Disparities in access are stark. Gross enrollment is only 28.4%, with rural and scheduled caste students facing dropouts rates to 25% due to infrastructure deficit and caste discrimination. The digital divide worsened by COVID-19 included 70% of rural learners from online education. Curriculum rigidity perpetuates colonial legacies, prioritizing Eurocentric English literature that alienates diverse students, while rote learning stifles innovation, leaving 47% of graduates unemployable. Gender inequities persist, with women comprising just 45% of enrollment and 14% in STEM fields, hindered by safety and patriarchal norms. To address these, the paper examines NEP 2020 inclusive reform. NEP targets 50% enrollment by 2035 through scholarships, gender inclusion funds, and anti-discriminatory measures. It promotes Indian knowledge system to decolonize curricula, blending regional languages with English literature for cultural relevance. Vocational integration and credit banks offer flexible pathways for boosting women's GDP contribution by 27% as per UNESCO's reports. However, implementation lags, with only 20% of universities adopting IKS centers due to funding issues. A unique contribution of my paper is the role of English literature fostering inclusivity. Often critiqued as a colonial tool, English can be reoriented to subvert power structure. Drawing on Homi Bhabha's hybridity, I propose integrating feminist texts like Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Things and Mahashweta Devi's Draupadi to build empathy and critique inequalities. This extends to Dalit narratives like Om Prakash Valmiki's Juthan, reducing alienation and dropout rates by 18% in pilot programs. Literature thus becomes a catalyst for ethical literacy, aligning with NEP's holistic development and Viksit Bharat's emphasis on Nari Shakti and social harmony. Finally, the paper outlines strategies: redesign curricula with literature labs for empathy training, invest in faculty development for decolonial pedagogies, and leverage AI for personalized access. These reforms can help India achieve a $30 trillion economy while nurturing ethical leaders. In conclusion, reimagining higher education through inclusivity is essential for Viksit Bharat. It must transcend barriers to cultivate global citizens rooted in Indian ethos. My paper calls for urgent action from policymakers to make the vision reality. Thank you for your attention. I'd be happy to take any questions.
So, our next paper is Reimagining English Literature in 21st Century Higher Education, an Inclusive Literary Path to Viksit Bharat 2047. It was presented by Jyoti Mishra. The paper thoughtfully aligns English literary studies with transformative vision of National Education Policy 2020, positioning inclusivity as central to achieving Viksit Bharat 2047. It effectively integrates feminist and post-colonial frameworks, drawing on thinkers like Homi K. Bhabha to advocate curricula, decolonization, and cultural hybridity. The inclusion of marginalized narratives such as God of Small Things and Juthan strengthens its argument for empathy-driven pedagogy. The discussion on access disparities, gender gaps, and digital divide demonstrates strong socio-educational awareness. By linking literature with ethical citizenship and Indian ethos, the paper presents a humanistic and interdisciplinary roadmap for inclusive higher education reform. Overall, it is a well-synthesized and policy-relevant contribution that reposition English literature as a catalyst for equity and national development. Thank you.
Namaskar, myself Sushil Kumar Singh, research scholar from Sabarmati University. Today I am here to present my research paper on contemporary perspective on midlife crisis in women. Introduction. Midlife typically occurs between ages from 35 to 55. Its period of reflection, reassessment and life evaluation. This concept was first introduced in 1965 by Jacques. It is not always a crisis, it can be development transition. Women's experience shaped by biological and social factors. Biological factors: perimenopause, menopause, hormonal changes. Common symptoms are mood swings, sleep disturbance, fatigue, physical aging signs, hormone influence, emotional but are not the only cause of crisis. Few of the psychological factors: identity revaluation, generativity versus stagnation as performed by Erickson, existential reflections, emotional challenges, anxiety, depression, regret, opportunity for growth and self-discovery. Socio-cultural influences: changing family roles, career transition, cultural views, media influence, economic and social support system affect coping. Conclusion and implication: midlife crisis is multidimensional interaction of biological, psychological, and social factors. It is not purely negative, can lead to personal growth. Importance of awareness and education, psychological support, holistic healthcare approach. Midlife is also transition, not just crisis. Thank you.
So, our next paper is on contemporary perspective on midlife crisis in women, integrating biological, psychological, and socio-cultural framework. It's presented by Sushil Kumar Singh and Dr. Prachi Shah. The paper presents a comprehensive and integrative understanding of midlife crisis, moving beyond hormonal determinism to include psychological and sociocultural dimensions. It thoughtfully builds on classical developmental theories of Erik Erikson and Daniel D. Davidson, while criticizing earlier male-centered perspective. The balanced discussion of menopause, identity recognition, and role transmissions offers a evidence-based narrative. The emphasis on resilience, coping strategies, and sandwich generation effect adds contemporary relevance. The practical implications for healthcare, workplace policy, and psychoeducation enhance its applied significance. Overall, the paper successfully reframes the midlife as a developmental turning point characterized by both vulnerability and potential for growth.
Respected colleagues, Namaste. I am Dr. Sanjaykumar Ingale, Principal of Dr. A.D. Shinde Institute of Technology. It's my privilege to present the paper on inclusive higher education transformation through NEP 2020 and Indian Knowledge System for Viksit Bharat 2047 in a fifth multidisciplinary virtual conference organized on reimagining higher education in 21st century, an inclusive way towards NEP 2020 and IITE. The 21st century demands for fundamental reimagining of higher education that is inclusive, innovative and aligned with both national aspirations and global challenges. India's national education policy provides a transformative framework to modernize curricula, governance and pedagogy, while simultaneously emphasizing the integration of Indian knowledge system. The IKS aims to preserve cultural heritage and foster holistic learning. This dual emphasis on modernization and tradition positions higher education as a powerful catalyst for national development. Our study explores how higher education institutions can act as an engine of transformation for Viksit Bharat by synergizing NEP 2020 reforms with IKS. It highlights structural reforms such as multidisciplinary learning, digital innovation, equity and accreditation system. We have prepared a conceptual framework that summarizes everything. The cultural and ethical foundations offered by IKS, including sustainability, indigenous wisdom, and holistic perspective. This framework is based on the two pillars, one is NEP and the other is IKS, that balances the global competitiveness with local relevance, ensuring higher education contributes not only to economic growth but also to social equity and cultural continuity. Case insights from Maharashtra engineering education ecosystem illustrates how institutions are operationalizing this synergy. Universities are embedding multidisciplinary approaches, integrating indigenous practice into technical education, expanding digital inclusion and fostering entrepreneurship rooted in IKS. These examples demonstrate that inclusive transformation is both feasible and impactful. This paper recommends curriculum redesign to integrate IKS, faculty development for innovative pedagogy, accreditation reforms that value inclusivity and indigenous wisdom, digital inclusion to bridge the divides, and the entrepreneurship ecosystem that draws upon the traditional knowledge. Together, these strategies create a roadmap for higher education transformation that is visionary, practical and aligned with national aspirations of Viksit Bharat 2047. In conclusion, higher education transformation guided by NEP 2020 and enriched by IKS is not merely desirable but essential. It empowers students to become innovators, entrepreneurs and socially responsible citizens. It positions India as a leader in knowledge creation, innovation and sustainable development in 21st century. I extend my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Arjun Dave and Vedant Knowledge System for organizing this conference. I also extend my best wishes to all the participants of this conference May this collective effort truly achieve its noble objective of Viksit Bharat 2047. Together, let us reimagine higher education as a bridge between the tradition and the modernity, inclusivity and excellence, ensuring that Bharat's rise as a knowledge power is both globally competitive and deeply rooted in civilizational heritage. Thank you.
So the third paper presented over here is Inclusive Higher Education Transformation through NEP 2020 and Indian Knowledge System for Viksit Bharat 2047. The authors of this paper are Dr. Sanjaykumar Ingale, Ms. Namrata Nadgadalli, and Mr. Saminder Vibhute. The paper presents a visionary synthesis of National Education Policy 2020 and Indian Knowledge System as a twin pillar for achieving Viksit Bharat 2047. It effectively connects structural reform, multidisciplinary learning, digital transformation, and accreditation with cultural grounding and indigenous wisdom. The conceptual framework clearly demonstrates how modernization and tradition can coexist to foster inclusive and holistic higher education. The case study insights from Maharashtra's engineering institution added practical relevance and demonstrate real-time implementation possibilities. The discussion on governance, faculty readiness, and digital equity reflect the critical awareness of systematic challenges. Overall, the paper offers a balanced, policy-aligned, and forward-looking roadmap positioning higher education as a catalyst for national development and a global leadership. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I am Mrs. Sujita Krishna Jagtap. I am a PhD scholar in MGM University, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, that is Aurangabad, Maharashtra. My research topic is advocating inclusive education along with multidisciplinary skill development for the developing country, that is pluralistic nation. So I'll share the screen. Okay, first of all, thank you Vedant Knowledge System for providing this virtual online platform for my research abstract. Thank you very much. So the main objective of my research is to explore the framework for inclusive education shaped by national education policy, of course. So the chief objective is to emphasize the integration of diverse knowledge system, especially indigenous knowledge system, which should be well aligned with the national education policy and also including the various strategy required for the fast-paced global education development. Basically, the main aim is to enhance, to provide equity, skill building, keeping in mind cultural responsiveness within the educational institutions. So this research promotes equity and inclusion across all levels of education, irrespective of background of students, in terms of maybe their socioeconomic status or education. So basically it focuses on removing barriers for the underprivileged groups. So this can be done only by redesigning our curricula and adopting the right strategies, the pedagogy, to be more inclusive. Emphasis definitely needs to be given for multilingual education. As such, it is already a part of our NEP policy. And at the same time, it's not that we are proceeding further, we are going with the fast-paced technology advancement, including all those required latest technological skills into the education, but compromising with our indigenous knowledge system. That should not be the case. In fact, my research strongly advocates to ensure holistic development across all the learners. So the core aim is multidisciplinary learning to prepare our students for the real world challenges. So the curriculum that needs to be redesigned will definitely encourage integration of vocational skills. That is the must have inclusion into the newly developing framework of our educational policy, because of the excessive use of AI into teaching learning process. Somewhere the critical thinking skills of children is getting hampered. So even that needs to be well managed without compromising the thinking ability of students, and also promoting creativity within the education system. Now, this approach aims to empower students with diverse competencies and increase employability. And that's the reason why one cannot leave vocational skill training into a newly designed or newly to be designed education system. So, the for this integration, basically, a good kind of collaboration is required by the stakeholders, policymakers, obviously the educators, so that they are more focused to provide child-centric education platform to upcoming generation. So incorporation definitely of a traditional knowledge system needs to be maintained. Whatever good is a part of our traditional knowledge system should not be boycotted or discarded. It needs to be inculcated in the right manner, and that can be done only after proper studies. So that needs to be preserved and inculcated. So, if that is done, that will foster respect for our diverse cultural heritage, our traditions. So, this integration definitely is required for enriching our curricula, connecting our learners with our local wisdom. There are so many examples. I guess everyone knows about it. So that is required. Definitely, the new education policy, which will be aligned with NEP, definitely has a goal of sustainable development. Most important, community empowerment. So that is the purpose of any educational sector. So educational relevance and inclusivity is required. So focused efforts are supposed to be taken to remove educational disparities by providing, targeted support to the marginalized groups as well, like scholarships, concessions, discounts, even adult education should be included into this. So obviously, technology access, basic training for the technology access for people from all strata of society, that is required. Equitable opportunities should be provided for the academic success as well as social mobility. So the curricula that needs to be tailored to, meet the needs of the divergent society that we are dwelling into. So that should reflect and respect our culture, diversity, our languages, our history. So this approach basically nurtures students' identities, and that will develop mutual respect for each other's socio-economic backgrounds. That's what is the real purpose of education, and that's what is required. So only we can call then it as a holistic development of a child. So yeah, so that's what is required. So like I said earlier, our education system basically strives to balance, the preserving our traditional system with the latest technology, upcoming demands in the education sector. So usually, if a balance is not maintained, students cannot navigate the right path to approach to. So that is required. Inclusive education, basically, when we say it relies on integrating diverse, cultural perspectives and knowledge systems. So if the marginalized groups are empowered, elderly people are also included with the basic training, with the basic education, so that even in their old age, they have some basic learning to earn their livelihood, whatsoever it is. So these all factors needs to be considered well in advance before designing a curricula or pedagogy. So, and obviously we will have that respect for pluralism in our society. So challenges are there. Achieving a balance between traditional system and the modern global education system is not that easy, but with proper strategies, with proper planning, we can ensure equitable, holistic development, a very good kind of education system that will prepare our learners for the real world, real life challenges. And also, we as a nation will be interconnected with the world. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Our next paper is on educating inclusive education. Our next paper is on educating inclusive education and multidisciplinary skill development for a pluralistic nation by Sujita Jagtap. Paper presents a policy-aligned and forward-looking analysis grounded in the vision of the National Education Policy 2020, emphasizing inclusive and multidisciplinary transforming higher education system. It effectively highlights the integration of indigenous knowledge system with global academic standards to support the broader goal of Viksit Bharat. The focus on empowering marginalized and diverse community reflects strong sensitivity towards India's pluralistic social fabric. The proposed framework for bridging formal education with traditional knowledge adds a practical strategic value. The discussion on educational equity, identity preservation, and stakeholder collaboration strengthens its relevance for policymakers and educators. So, overall, the paper offers a balanced and culturally responsive roadmap for developing skilled, socially conscious, and globally competent citizens. Thank you.